Welcome back and thanks for keeping it KTS. Before we went for a break, gentlemen, we were discussing the process involved in the formulation of a CFSP. And Mr. Kiprono, apart from the revenues we get from the national government, what other things, what other processes do we derive, or what other processes do the CFSP borrow from the BPS?
Yeah, actually, apart from counties knowing like what is the share of the national cake, they also get to know like what's the policy direction, because I mean, counties and national government are interdependent, they coexist, and they together they want to achieve the Vision 2030, and so the policies set at national level, informs what counties also will choose, what kind of policy directions counties will choose. So the BPS sets the national policy directions. So also counties borrows a bit of those the directions, like, so where are we heading? Where is the national, where is the national government policy heading, and how do we go there? So they also borrow some ideas about what is going at the national level and what is this we can do at the county level, so that we are heading the same direction, so that counties are not going their own direction and national government is going their own direction. But remember where we're going together as a country, we're going to the Vision 2030. So we all need to contribute to that. So all counties need to contribute to the Vision 2030. So they also borrow about something to do the policies set at the national level. Remember also the public also has a role to play in the BPS, because like I said, it also sets ceilings for each ministry at the national level. So talk about issue, there's a lot of news going around about MTRH, the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, lacking supplies and something like that. It has something to do with the budget. I remember that's a national facility, but we are utilizing this facility at the county level. So I mean, we have a role to also influence the budgets that goes to the ministries, so that we have the services that we need in Rivaro. So county government cannot intervene what's happening in Rivaro, but it's national government. So remember, so we don't leave completely what is happening at the national level and just focus on what's happening at the county level, but we also make sure that we are also influencing the national policies. So this PPS gives funding to the ministries. So if, for example, we are experiencing something in MTRH right now, then we need to look at this PPS document and also do a memo as county and say, look, are we having challenges currently at MTRH, and perhaps we need more funding the next financial year, so this year, and considering the challenges that we're facing right now, then we say from the funding that Rivaro got this financial year, we need additional funding so that we address these challenges the next financial year. Yeah.
Mr. Kiprono, you mentioned something on the role of the public in deciding the ceilings. And do the same public have a role in deciding what the ceilings should be used for? I mean, what role? Do they have a priority, or do they have a right to decide on what projects should the ceilings be engaged in?
Yes, actually the public has a role, a very important role in deciding how the ceiling should be spent. So the ceiling in this case is the maximum amount ministry should spend. Now, so after that, so each ministry goes and decides what it is that they want to do to achieve their objective. Okay, so remember, each department has an objective. So they will now go back and draw from the ADP that we talked, look at the policy directions from the CFSP, and then decide, like, I mean, so what are the initiatives that we need to do for us to achieve our objectives. So, for example, if the public is worried about healthcare and supply of medical drugs in health facilities, so how would that decision be taken? So what happens is the department will do some analysis around what are the challenges, what are the current challenges facing the healthcare and something like that, and then they take those priorities to the public and say, okay, we are deciding 1, 2, 3 things this year. Do you agree with these things or not? And if not, give us something different, give us a suggestion. And then the public now will look at what are the challenges they face and what are the priorities the government is proposing, and then say, okay, I mean, remove 1, 2, 3 things because, I mean, it's not addressing the challenges that we face, and give us 1, 2, 3 things. That's the role the public plays. So the department will go back and revise its priorities and submit that document to the Treasury for consolidation, so that we have a complete budget having all the departments. And then that document is tabled in the county assembly. So what happens in the county assembly is that the county assembly will review that document to make sure that it speaks to it addresses the needs of the public, it is within the law. Remember, we talked about no public resources should be spent outside the planning framework, which is ATP and CITP documents. I mean, once the budget is tabled at the Assembly has a very critical role in deciding whether each department has spent its money within the planning framework, which we talked about ATP and CITP. It also has a role to ensure that each department is addressing needs facing public, which actually is supposed to be the priorities given by the public. And so, I mean, if you look, for example, at the healthcare example, like, I mean, public is concerned about the healthcare and supply of medical drugs. So the Assembly will look at how is the budget responding to that challenge. And if it is not, then they look at it and say, I mean, this budget is not responding to the public issue. And they'll summon, for example, the person in charge of the Department for Health Services and say, there is no budget, there is no program in your budget addressing this challenge. And if it is not satisfied with the explanation, then they'll shift resources from one program and create a program that will address those challenges. Not really like editing the budget, but they'll recommend. They'll write a recommendation to the department and say, I mean, revise your budget and create a program. So they'll look at this budget in two ways. One of them is looking at the justification given by each department on choices made. If the justification is not adding up, then they will recommend, like, I mean, revise 1, 2, 3 things. The other thing, they will consult the public. And this consultation with the public is normally called public hearings. And the public hearings is just to confirm whether the priorities in the budget are what the public agreed with the executive. So it's just confirming and saying, I mean, did we agree on these things? And if the public says no, then they recommend, like, I mean, you didn't consult public. Can you go back and consult public or something like that? Or do 1, 2, 3 things that will address the challenges facing public, something like that. So the final document that will come out of the Assembly is an approved budget, which is now a law. Nothing will be spent outside that budget, or no money will come to the budget without Assembly approving. Again, so it will be now a law, and Assembly has a role to make sure that that law is.
But can something be spent below the budget?
Yes, in some cases where, for example, we designed a program and in the middle of implementing, we realized this program was not viable or has challenges that we didn't know, then that program can be scrapped off the budget and the money be a surplus, or be in the middle of the financial year, a supplementary budget is done and then another program is introduced. So Assembly must approve at any given stage. So it's either we have another program or we have the money as surplus to be spent in the next financial year.
Thank you so much, viewers, for staying tuned to the Public Finance Trail program. Remember, today we've been discussing the budget cycle, what process is involved at each stage from the formulation to the enactment stage. In our next episode, we'll be discussing where we are currently as far as the budget is concerned. My name is Regina Kinyo-Lando, and with me have been Mr. Timothy Kiprono, a program officer at Career Center Organization, and Mr. Emmanuel Kongin, assistant program officer at Career Center Organization. See you next time. God bless.